Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio.
Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, it's time! 3 on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game! Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni! Float game for the win! Ayler's gone! Come on, touchdown, Indy! Woo! America! They got a football team now!
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. So glad to have you along as we start this new week. It's tourney week as tournaments are underway, and those that are not underway are soon to be. Plenty to talk about. Greg Rakestraw joining us as we'll talk about the beginning of the high school boys basketball tournament as that is underway. As soon as I can get the right spread out there. There we go. Hey, Greg, how are you, sir?
Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Oh, good. A busy weekend. Lots happening, whether it's in the high school side or the college side. Everybody playing, playing for something to determine something. And it was a fun weekend, actually.
That's good. It was for me as well. That's good to hear on your end.
A busy weekend for you, I'm sure, as it was for most people, but not quite as busy as it is normally for them. It is for you, as yours goes deep into each night, but yours is usually exciting, some exciting high school basketball, and there's nothing more exciting in Indiana than when the tournament rolls around, because always upsets, always great finishes, and it's just always fun. There is nothing that I have more I have greater memories of in high school than during the tournament. And it's just, it's a spectacle, and it still remains that.
And it was where I was at as well. So I kind of camped out at the Carmel sectional all week long. Crowds topped 11,000 for the 3 sessions. And they may have hit sellouts in terms of all 3. I know both Tuesday and Friday were sellouts at Carmel. Saturday was close. Which is always a little tougher to do, even when you're playing for the championship. We're down to 2 teams and not 4. But it was high-quality basketball, as you would expect, from 6 of the largest schools in the state. In the Sagarin ratings coming in, all 6 teams in the top 35. And, frankly, the top 3, Fishers, Westfield, Noblesville, as they were a year ago. And Fishers gets through Westfield in night 1, gets through Noblesville in night number 2, and had to come from behind in the third quarter. And frankly, you know, because they were playing teams are really good, and teams that know them because they play them so often as conference foes, or obviously a county rival in terms of Carmel. Not surprisingly, the offense was not as big of a show for Fishers as it sometimes can be, but defensively they didn't allow more than 47 points to Westfield, Zionsville, or Noblesville. All of those that have, you know, likely Division I level talent on each of those teams. It is so easy with Fishers being so good to get caught up in what they can do offensively. Well, defensively for the season, they allowed an average of 50 points a game coming in, and nobody got to that in their 3 victories. To Jim get to 40 consecutive wins, and that's pretty rarefied air in terms of Indiana high school basketball.
I'd say it's rarefied air anywhere, but especially in a state as steeped in it as Indiana is. And some big Braylon Mullins, his career is over. He will not go forward as his team loses in double overtime, dramatic fashion to Mount Vernon. A little surprise there.
Yes and no. Surprised because Greenfield is higher ranked, and Greenfield beat Mount Vernon by single digits when they played. I want to say they played back on January the 10th, if I have that right. But unfortunately, Braylon did not have the greatest of supporting casts around him. And again, to that kid's credit, when others left, he stayed to stay at his hometown high school. And again, it's a bit different. He's got twin brothers that are a year behind him. You know, mom and dad are pretty entrenched in the community. He wasn't going to go anywhere. And so I'm not criticizing the kid, just stating the fact. He is without doubt Mr. Basketball. But at the same time, didn't have maybe the supporting cast around him that you know could have elevated them to go farther. Other thing is that Greenfield was a legitimate top 5, top 10 team in the state. Well, so too is Anderson, and so too is Mount Vernon. And Mount Vernon has been on a run over the last couple of months. Really, the only team that kind of tripped them, the only teams that tripped them up the last couple of months of the season were Greenfield Central and Westfield. And they played Westfield the Tuesday before the tournament started and led for most of that game. And Westfield came from behind to beat them in overtime. And Luke Erdl is a really good point guard. And Luke Erdl has overcome the fact that two of his teammates transferred for the beginning of the season to go play at Cathedral. So a slight upset, yes. But again, such is the nature of being a 4A school in the Indianapolis area, because there's usually a lot of really other good talent in your sectional when you play big boy basketball in Central Indiana.
Yeah, and some positive things for Braylon is he finished his career with just under 2160 at 2,158 points. He passed Sean Kemp, Kyle Macy, Michael Lewis, who I just saw at the Indiana game the other night, Chris Thomas, as on the state's all-time scoring list. So he's a McDonald's All-American. Likely going to be Indiana Mr. Basketball. So it hurts right now, but there will be a lot more happiness coming towards him soon.
He'll have to overcome it, Jim, by playing in the NBA like 2 years from now. I think he's going to be just fine long term.
Yeah, absolutely. But the good thing is the Indiana Boys basketball tournament continues on, and it is a spectacle, and this is what makes it fun. You never know who's going to be there. And did anybody else not make it out of sectional play that surprised you? Jefferson, how did Jeffersonville do? I have not been up to date on these as I should be. I apologize. But how about Jeffersonville?
So Jeff moved on. Jeff beat New Albany. There will be a passing of the torch next year. It'll go back to being New Albany being the best team in that part of the state.
Of what's his kid's name? Isaiah Washington?
Yeah, right. The next wave that is coming in for New Albany, but this Jeffersonville team legitimately has a chance of playing in the state championship game. They would play Harrison, who is a good team, but Jeff is better in terms of the regional. To answer your question, the only team that probably statewide other than Greenfield Central would catch somebody's attention that did not make it out of their sectional, but also a very similar story would be Cathedral in 3A. Again, Cathedral part of that group with the shrinking of 4A that would have been amongst the best 4A teams in the state that dropped down to the 3A level. Attucks, New Pal, the other notables from the Indy area. Well, Attucks and Cathedral are in the same sectional. Attucks comes from behind to beat them in the Friday night semifinal game, which is the de facto championship game. Attucks then beat Shortridge on their home floor on Saturday night to win their first sectional since the last time they were in 3A back in 2019. So Cathedral wins one game, and that's it for them in the state tournament. And again, 3A is going to be a gauntlet, and 3A is likely as good as it ever has been, because I can point to 5 or 6 teams and make a case for that team being a state championship team.
My man T-Ron, and I know it's Tyrone, but I like to say T-Ron. T-Ron let me know Jeffersonville 14-game winning streak as well. So good for them.
Yeah, it's amazing how having your best player back can lead to a 14-game winning streak. And it's also amazing how playing a really rugged schedule, a predominantly Indianapolis area schedule for the first couple of months of the season makes you a better team over the course of the last 2 months of the season. So, no, Jeff, because of what they brought back from last year, where they were a minute away from playing for a state championship last season. Again, we'll see what the semi-state draw looks like. But in the southern half of 4A, Lawrence North should make it through to the semi-state. Jeffersonville should make it through to the semi-state. And other than that, it's kind of a toss-up because of having some upsets. Brownsburg was under 500 and had the worst record in their sectional, and they won 3 times in 4 nights to be a sectional champ. Mount Vernon, really good team, but can they be beaten? Certainly. Terre Haute North, pretty good basketball team. They play Whiteland in terms of their regional. But it's LN who beat Jeff when they played on January the 4th. It's those 2 teams that likely the 4A South finalist would be one of those 2 teams.
So now we have the regional weekend, baby. We've got Seymour, and I used to know all the locations because they didn't change. Not
right.
It was the same for so long. Now I'm like, I'm lost. Other than Seymour, because I know Seymour is going to be a sectional, regional, and semi-state site, which that didn't used to be the case. But I get it. It's pretty cool. It's a great location. But other than that location, yeah, I'm lost.
All right, so there are 16 regional sites across the state. 4 teams go to a regional, but a couple of years ago it changed. It's no longer same 4 teams in each class and you're playing twice. It is now 1 game, 2 teams move on from each site. Then we have a draw show next Sunday to determine 4A North, 4A South, who's playing whom, where they are playing, etc. So Jeffersonville and Harrison will play at Southridge. That's pretty nice and splits the 2 in terms of a neutral site. 2 of the 4A games.
So Seymour is not an automatic.
Yes, they are. But that is not where 4A feeds into. They try to pick a regional site that is most convenient to the schools, and hence that way it can also, draw more tickets, draw more fans, make it nice and convenient for them. So Jeffersonville and Evansville Harrison will play at Southridge. The 2 4A Indianapolis area games will play at Southport. And I think most years that will hold true because, again, the longest drive any of those schools would have to get to Southport is about 20 or 25 minutes. You get some ones that are a little bit out of the way for both, and it's just kind of the nature of the format of how they do it. For example, Terre Haute North and Whiteland will go to the Hatchet House and play at Washington. So this format isn't perfect, but what the idea is here, if it's just going to be 1 game, try to get the schools as close to this site as they possibly can, but yet have the sites predetermined so they can prepare, budget, and staff and be ready to go once they're assigned teams on Saturday night.
It's fun regardless. Either way, it's always, where will you be this weekend?
So I will be at Southport, which is kind of the standard.
Let me guess. You're going to be in 3 different places at the same time.
I'm actually not. I'm going to be at Southport. I get a 1:00 game and a 4:00 game. So I get Brownsburg and Mount Vernon, and I gave you the Brownsburg and Mount Vernon stories. The other half of the backstory is that Steve Lynch, who is the head coach at Brownsburg, before he was at Brownsburg, was the head coach at Mount Vernon. And so there's that element to it. Lawrence North will take on Mooresville, and Mooresville was the winner of a revamped and very open sectional. Mooresville had not won a sectional title since the first year of class basketball, since 1998, and they are coached by Gavin Groniger, played at Michigan, was a state champ at Plainfield 25 years ago, was on the staff at Plainfield for many years until this year. LN will be the heavy favorite in that game. So that is my site that I'll be at, and I think an afternoon doubleheader is good enough for me that day.
Hey, it gives you the evening, a little dinner, a little rarity for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's nice to have a Saturday night off every once in a while.
All right. Who is your all right, your 4A favorite, other than Fishers? Who is your favorite to win that? Fishers is not allowed
the answer
to be in the
right.
Yeah, Fishers is not allowed to be in the draw.
I will go with Lawrence North.
Really?
Yeah, just a tick above Jeff. They beat Jeff on January 4th. In fairness, Trey Singleton was playing for a second time all year. He had made his season debut the week before in the consolation game against Warsaw, the Hall of Fame Classic. And honestly, because Jeff beat LN last year, I think that's a team and a game that LN's been thinking about all season long. So LN in a close one against Jeff in the southern half of the bracket.
The Fighting Todd Learys. I asked Todd about that the other day. I said, hey, how are the Fighting Todd Learys doing? So obviously doing quite well. I'll be sure to let him know that he needs to catch up with them.
I'm sure he'd appreciate that. Although since his son played at Carmel, you might consider the Fighting Todd Learys the Carmel Greyhounds at this point.
He went to the state championship with them, so and won a sate championship with them. So
which is true, correct? In 1989, correct. Yep.
And with he's passed on now, unfortunately, but the great big man that I'm drawing a blank on, can see his face right now.
That would be Eric Montross that you're referencing. And part of what makes this Lawrence North team all the more impressive is the fact that Xavier Robinson is going to play at Butler next year. He is the all-time leading scorer now at Lawrence North. And as we stated, this happened February the 21st. He's been chasing it for a good chunk of the year. When you go to a high school that has 3 NBA players as alums and you're the all-time leading scorer, kind of says something about your ability in the career that you have had, because it's also the home of Greg Oden, Mike Conley Jr., and the late Eric Montross. So kind of gives you an idea as to how good of a career Xavier Robinson has had playing for first Jack Kiefer and now for Chris Giffen.
Well, and the kind of bring it full circle kind of a thing. Todd, I know, has worked with Xavier on some things through myjumpshot.com and whatnot to help him move on in his next journey. But it's great to see that past touching the future of a school like that. Very cool.
No doubt. And the thing that people don't recognize that are from outside of the area, Lawrence North only came into existence in 1976. So this entire history is in the last 50 years when they split off from Lawrence Central. So it's what they did to get good quickly. Having a guy like Jack Kiefer as the head coach is a pretty impressive build, because it's still a very young high school compared to most of the ones they play.
Yeah, it's like back in the day when Floyd first came into existence in 67 and go to the Final Four in 71. I'm sure New Albany I'm sure New Albany did not like that, nor Providence, because they are some of those players were on that team that they would have had. But it's a great time of year. Make sure you are giving Greg a follow and staying up with everything through the ISC Sports Network, and keeping in tune with everything that's going on in the IHSAA network. All of the games that are on there. Is that the best place for people to see the games? IHSAA.org.
Excuse me. So yes. So once we get to the postseason, all games are exclusive to IHSAATV.org. Regional and the sectional before it are both free. Semi-state next week is pay-per-view, but it's a tremendous deal. $20 gets you access to all 24 games. You can bop around from game to game and watch them in that fashion. Again, for those that are listening in Central Indiana, we are on television this weekend. So we are on My Indy TV at 1 and 4 o'clock as well.
There you go, peeps. Looking forward to it, buddy. Thank you as always. Looking forward to next week to see how the regional round goes. Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio.